Could we start transitioning to the next session, please?
I have you. And this one?
And then I can call you from there. No, you will not respond to questions, but I thought it would be easier if I call you from here, or do you want to come from the crowd? Okay. Are the speakers on? I think it's a sign. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you very warmly to this session. The side event is focusing on accelerating implementation of the Paris Agreement, transitioning to low carbon and climate resilient development. I'm Edith Ofwana-Adera. I work with the International Development Research Center. This side event is co-hosted with 5 institutions. We have the Africa Center for Technology Studies, ACTS. We have Business for Social Responsibility, BSR. We're also partnering with the government of Uganda, represented by the Ministry of Water and Environment, as well as the Energy and Resources Institute. So thank you very much and welcome to the session. I'd like to ask the speakers in this session to come forward. We'll start with you, Edward. Please come forward. Dr. Mathur, come forward. Dr. Suleri, Kennedy Mbeva. And we will be joined by the Ugandan representative shortly. Welcome. I will be moderating this session with Dr. George Wamukoya, who's right in front here. We've divided the side event into 2 parts. We'll first start with an opening remarks from Dr. Robert Hofstede, Associate Director of Climate Change at IDRC. And this will be followed by an overview presentation by Dr. Suleri, who's going to give us an overview of the impacts of a 1.5-degree scenario and what are the implications for a transition to low carbon and climate resilient development. Dr. Suleri's presentation will be followed by a panel discussion that will be moderated by Dr. George Wamukoya. We will then have an opportunity to open discussions, a plenary discussion, and we'll close with a wrap-up of the key issues that have emerged from the session. Thank you very much. So with this, I'd like to invite Dr. Robert Hofstede, Associate Director of Climate Change at the International Development Research Center. Robert, over to you.
Thank you very much, Edith. Thank you all for being here in this very busy week. Thank you, dear panelists. I would like to express my thanks from IDRC to the Republic of Uganda, TERI, BSR, and ACTS for co-organizing and co-hosting this event. The International Development Research Centre, IDRC, is a Canadian Crown institution that supports high-quality applied research in the Global South with the overall goal to support sustainable livelihoods. I'd like to think that we support the research that actually identifies those solutions that are applicable, scalable, and bankable. We want to do that integrated research that actually makes solutions for people to, in the area of climate change, actually become resilient and make use of the positive externalities of climate change. Because we believe that apart from creating those solutions, we strengthen the leadership and to have the capacity to actually apply the solutions. Apart from that, we create partnerships with many organizations in the Global South to actually implement the solutions. In the area of climate change, we believe that it is a factor that multiplies threats. No one of our, let's say, end beneficiaries in vulnerable areas in the world, vulnerable population, will see climate change as their major worry. They are directly worried about food, about water, about their health, about jobs. But everybody agrees that climate change is making those existing problems even worse. But we also think that climate change creates many opportunities. The current global action on climate change has diversified economies, has made landscapes more sustainable, and has made healthy societies. It has created jobs and improved livelihoods. So IDRC wants to support that research that understand how climate change affects the basic ingredients for human security: water, energy, health, jobs, environment. And we do that in vulnerability hotspots, areas where there is a high exposure to climate change and the low capacity to respond to that. And we then identify the opportunities that makes those landscapes sustainable, the cities resilient, and the society secure. In this event, we are very aware with our partners that we are at a very important moment in time. The Paris Agreement, we have now an adopted framework for universal global response between public and private sectors. That global response should leave us to a maximum rise of 2 degrees Celsius or even below at 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. That would be really a wonderful goal to achieve, and we'll be hearing what the consequences and what the implications are. To do so, we need the commitment of several countries, many countries, all countries in the world. Especially the African countries, they are now at different stages of transforming the INDCs into NDCs, formulating low greenhouse gas emission and climate resilient development strategies. IRDC, being rooted in the Global South, knows very much that adaptation and mitigation go hand in hand. So these plans definitely will look at this continuum between all actions that is needed to make resilience and by that create lower emissions as well. But this transition requires fundamental and wide-ranging responses that encompass the public and the private sector. It has targets and regulations as well as a deep investment from different sectors. Now, what does it take to make this transition? That's one of those typical questions that we like to respond. And I'm happy to hear several of those solutions, or at least reflections on those solutions from this panel, both with representatives from government, from private sector, and research perspectives. I wish you all a very interesting session, and I hope on a lively debate with our wonderful panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Robert, for setting the stage and helping us prepare for the next session. Next, we have Dr. Abid Suleri, who's the Executive Director of the Sustainable Development Policy Institute. He's going to give us an overview of the impacts of a 1.5 degree scenario and implications for a transition to low carbon and climate resilient development. Over to you, Dr. Suleri.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me thank Robert for very excellently setting the scene. I think my task is much easier now. When I was preparing my talking points for today, I thought to just use the practical examples. And one of the things, which is my starting point, is the state of affairs as it stands today. And we know that today, it's already 1 degree above pre-industrial level. So while we are talking of implications when it would be 1.5 degree pre-industrial level or 2 degree or whatever, what is the state of affair today? So most of the IPCC forecasts, they are reality now. Halting at 1.5, it would look to be at least twice as hard as the 2 degree option. On its own, of course, the difference is only half a degree, very marginal, but it would have a much greater effect on the probability of extreme and destructive weather events like floods, droughts, storms, and heat waves. Now, today, with this 1 degree centigrade increase, the disaster risk reduction community, they were never stretched to that extent. We face drought and flood in the same country at the same time. So part of the country, no matter if it's most of the countries, big or small, especially I'm talking of South Asia, you will find that one part of country, it is facing severe floods. This other part of the same country is facing severe drought, and the risk reduction authorities, disaster management authorities, they have no clue what to do. We also see, for example, in May, June 2016, part of Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, they were facing droughts. And there were severe floods in South India, and there were floods in Sri Lanka. So again, South Asia as a region, it becomes quite vulnerable with this 1 degree centigrade increase in temperature. As you know, that Pakistan is facing with floods since 2010. So almost every year there is a flood, and there is a cycle. 1 year of flood, 1 year of drought, 1 year of flood, same year there's flood and drought. And it has very severe implications on coping mechanisms and adaptation strategies, because when community, they start adapting measures for floods, immediately they face the problem of drought. And when they start getting used to and getting adapted to drought, they find this flood. And that makes life even more complicated. And this is not only that the families and the individuals, they are finding it difficult. The governments, they are finding it extremely difficult too. And I can say that in our region, Ajay may correct me if I'm wrong, but most of the disaster management authorities, they are not ready yet. We can also see the impacts on human life. With the support of IDRC, we are working on this PRICE project, Pathways of Resilience in Semi-Arid Economies. And we have seen migration as one of the major factors, both as a pull factor as well as a push factor to avoid from these climate changes. And migration, even when it is used as a strategy to avoid the losses, it has, according to our study, very severe social implications, because most of the time it is the women, it's the children, and it's the elderly people who are left behind to face all the natural and man-made calamities. I'm not using the word women-made, because most of the policies in Pakistan, they are made by men. So man-made and natural calamities, it is the most vulnerable who have to face it, while the most resilient members of the family, they emigrate. And this is one of the cost of migration that we are paying. Now, again, in terms of economy, when we looked at the floods in 2010, 2012, and 2014, the conservative estimate